Welcome back to another episode of the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grosboll, and joining me today is Julie Daubenmire. And Julie serves as the Director of Marketing and Family Engagement for Cancer-Free Kids, a nonprofit that funds early-stage innovative pediatric cancer research at Columbus Nationwide Children's Hospital and Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Julie's role at Cancer-Free Kids is professional and personal, as she was led to join the organization in January of 2026 after her daughter rang the bell to finish treatment for osteosarcoma, a rare pediatric bone cancer. Julie is passionate about advocating for childhood cancer awareness and the need for safer, more effective treatments for pediatric cancer patients. So welcome to the show, Julie.
Thanks, Melissa. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being on, and sorry for the little stumble there. You did not have Cancer-Free Kids on the top, and it's like, oh, that doesn't make sense. I have to fix it. So
no worries.
All right. So based on this, obviously you are in Ohio, correct? Have you been there your whole life?
Yeah, just about. My parents moved to Ohio, Columbus, when I was about one year old. So I claim Ohio as my state. I've been here in Columbus area, my whole childhood. I went to the University of Dayton for college, so went about 90 minutes west for that. But ever since then, my husband and I both grew up in Central Ohio, and here's where we call home. And our families are still here, so it's a great place to live and work and raise our girls, and it's a really great community. We're big Buckeye fans, so go Buckeyes, and lots of things to do here. We love it.
That seems to be a very Midwest kind of thing, that just generations just stay in the same kind of area. I've lived in 4 different states, and it was never really my upbringing to stay in the same place my whole life. So I always find it fascinating that people live in the same state their whole lives.
Yeah, we love it. Now, we love to travel. I love going to see new cities and new places around the country and internationally. We've been fortunate to take some trips internationally with our family. But at the end of the day, we always think there's no place I'd rather live than here. It's great.
Well, and if you love where you are, then that's all that really matters, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right, Julie, so what were you doing before your daughter was diagnosed?
Like professionally?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a marketing PR background. Before I joined Cancer-Free Kids, before all of this came into my life, I actually was already sort of working in the space tangentially. Before Cancer-Free Kids, I worked for a great marketing agency here in Columbus, and I was fortunate to carve out this little niche for myself, working in our healthcare and nonprofit portfolio. So I worked in healthcare for some large hospital systems. I had worked for nonprofits that serve like Make-A-Wish. We have a local nonprofit here that serves kids with different medical conditions, and just others like really in the space of serving kids and families who have not only cancer, but other serious medical conditions. And I think I've always kind of come from a place where I really want my professional life to be really meaningful and purposeful. So I already had that niche kind of even before, but then, life happens and life is crazy sometimes. And so, my daughter's went through her journey. And after that, I was really called and felt like it was, the opportunity came up, and it just was really came out that I had this opportunity to come and really marry my personal and professional passions. And so I'm really happy I was able to join the team at Cancer-Free Kids just about 6 months ago.
And I think that that's kind of what most of us want, right? Is just to be able to follow our passions. And maybe it's serendipitous that you were kind of already in that world. And I don't know, maybe that, and you can tell me if that kind of helped. I don't even want to say soften the blow, because you can't really when your daughter's diagnosed, but you kind of already had contacts maybe and in that world. So it made navigating it hopefully a little bit easier.
100%. Yeah, we went in and I can certainly share the story of her diagnosis, but I was like, well, I already know people at this organization. I know people in the space. People would reach out to me and say, hey, I'm going to connect you with such and such that can help answer your questions. So in that way, I do feel like it was. Um, the universe, God, whoever, whatever your belief is. For me, it's God puts people in your path that can help you along the way. And that was certainly the case for us. And it's something that we're really, really grateful for.
All right. Well, since you brought it up, let's kind of go there. What is your daughter's name?
Her name's Hannah.
Hannah. Okay.
She just turned 12. Yes.
Day. Happy birthday to Hannah.
No, not today, but recently. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Happy belated birthday.
Yeah.
All right. So take us back to, I believe she was like 10 years old. Take us back kind of to that space. What was going on? How was she diagnosed? Were there a lot of symptoms? Just kind of take us through really that time and her diagnosis.
Sure. So it was August of 24, and our family likes running. Both my kids were in a youth running club, like a little cross country club, and Hannah was just having some knee pain, which we thought was kind of chalked it up to being a running or a sports injury, and took her to sports medicine, and they did an x-ray, and it didn't seem anything was crazy, but the doctor said there was just something a little bit funny looking on the x-ray, so he couldn't get a really clear image, so he wanted her to get an MRI just to get some additional imaging. So took her in for that. And then that was when they called the very next day and said, we're really sorry. It looks like she has some kind of a tumor between her knee and her tibia. At that point, could have been a number of different things. But the very next day, went in for a surgical biopsy. And that was when it was confirmed to be osteosarcoma, which is a rare form of pediatric bone cancer. And then, a week later, she was getting her port and started chemo and led us on a whole 10-month journey that, we never imagined that we would be. She really didn't have many symptoms or any symptoms other than the knee pain when she was running. And, the doctors kept asking us, like, has she had fevers? Does she have a lot of pain and all these other things? And we were like, no, it's really just when she was running. So, we sort of sometimes joke that like running saved her life, because otherwise she wouldn't have, it would have been weeks or months since we might have had it like progress enough to show other symptoms. So we were fortunate that upon diagnosis it was localized, and so for bone tumors and sarcomas like osteosarcoma, that's really like one of the most important things is to catch it before it starts to spread. And so we're fortunate that was the case for her.
Well, unfortunately, you took her in fairly quickly as well. I mean, my daughter played rugby in high school, and she injured her knee. And I mean, it's rugby. Kids get injured playing rugby. And me being from a more holistic background, for a while, I was like, well, just ice it. It'll be fine. And I mean, we finally took her in, and I mean, it ended up just being an overuse injury, which is kind of what I thought it was in the first place. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm grateful it was nothing else. But I mean, I kind of waited probably longer than I even should have, because like, oh, it'll go away. It'll go away. So was there something about it that you just thought, I mean, this isn't going away, or maybe just a sixth sense that there might really be something wrong?
Well, I chuckle when you say that, because there was something. The year prior, my older daughter, who was also a runner, had been having pain, and I did what you did. I put it off. I was like, oh, you're fine. You're fine. And she ended up having a stress fracture. So,
All right.
So when this happened, I was like, all right, we're not going to do this anymore. We already know the sports med doc. I'm just going to go ahead and make an appointment and get this checked out like sooner rather than later. And, my husband was kind of rolling his eyes and he's like, oh, she's fine. And then, now we're like, oh, thank goodness we did. Right.
Absolutely.
So, again, it's just like those little things in life that it's just crazy.
Sometimes God puts the right things in at the right time for you to be able to handle the bigger things when they come.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
All right. And then, so did she just have chemo? Tell us a little bit about osteosarcoma. And I mean, did she have to have surgery? Like, what was kind of just a quick overview of her treatment?
Sure. So, for osteosarcoma, the standard of care, you have about 9 to 10 months of chemo. There's three different, very broad spectrum chemo drugs that they use. We were inpatient in the hospital Monday through Thursday, 3 out of every 5 weeks. So she would have chemo. The 2 weeks that we were home in between was when her body was recovering from, having no platelets, low ANC, no immune system. So we like really couldn't, she couldn't do anything. She missed the whole year of her fourth grade year. I think 10 weeks into the chemo, she had what they call as a limb salvage surgery. So this is when they go in, they take out the tumor, they removed all of her knee and most of her tibia, so unable to get clear surgical margins. And she actually has a titanium knee and tibia implant that is, I think it's really cool. It grows by magnet as she grows. So,
Oh, very cool.
yeah. So the advances on the surgical side and what they're able to do with prosthetics and things like that is really cool. They said 10 or 15 years ago they would have just automatically amputated for a case like this. And even more recently than that, they would have had to go in and surgically grow the implant because they're 10 years old and kids are still growing, so they can't, it's not just like you have a one size fits all implant. But now they're able to use magnets, and she goes in every 6 to 8 weeks and they grow her implant a couple millimeters at a time. So anyway, so she had that, and then after that had another 4 to 5 months of continued chemo. Because of the chemo, her scar, her implant from her incision from the surgery, it was hard to heal, so she had to have a couple cleanup things for infections and things like that. And then while she was getting the chemo after the surgery, she's trying to heal her leg. She was in an immobilized brace for 6 weeks, and slowly regaining and relearning how to walk and doing all the things. So it was a tough journey. But that's really the standard of care for osteosarcoma, and it's been about that way since I would have had the same treatment plan if I would have had it when I was a kid. So it's been the same for decades.
Yes. And we are definitely
Yes.
going to get into
Yes.
that.
Yes.
But I want to follow up now. Will that implant and prosthetic be with her for the rest of her life? Will she have to have another surgery at some point once she's full grown, or 20, 30 years down the road to replace that? Or will that stay with her for the rest of her life?
Hard to say for sure. Likely she will have to have another surgery implant, at some point when she's into adulthood. But, that's kind of one of those things where it's like, you just go along while you can, and, kind of see how things shake out as she grows up here in the future. It does limit, she has some limitations physically, so she can no longer run or play contact sports. There's things that it is limitation, and she has, a limb difference. But she started to play adaptive sled hockey and be able to meet some other kids who have lots of other limb differences. And that's been a really cool community to be a part of.
Oh, very cool. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
If she'd ever be
Yep.
able to run again, but not.
Yep.
And then it has been what, like as of this recording, it's been pretty much a year since she finished treatment.
Yeah, a little over a year. So she officially rang the bell to finish treatment in April 2025. So we're just coming up of a little over a year. So she has scans every couple months, and technically it's 5 years. Like lots of cancers, it's technically 5 years until you reach survivorship. But we're moving along. She's doing great. She was back at school. She's living her best little 12-year-old life now, and just doing all the things that kids should be doing, which is what we want for all kids, but especially kids after they go through something like going through cancer. They just want to be kids at the end of the day, and that's what what we're all trying to do and help them be.
Fantastic. And then I've talked to a couple of other people who have had childhood cancers in their life, and talk to me a little bit about your older daughter. How was everything through this whole process? And what is your older daughter's name?
Her name's Lucy.
Lucy. How
Yeah.
was everything for Lucy and Lucy's relationship with Hannah and the family going through all of this, and then also now?
Sure. I mean, it was really hard for all of us, as you can imagine. Lucy is 3 years older than Hannah, so she was in 7th grade when this was going on. We were really lucky, as many people are. We had a really strong support system with our family, friends, neighbors, church community, and we tried to keep things really as normal as possible for Lucy as she, was continuing to go to school and do sports and all of her things. But I think one of the things that I learned, and that our family is also really passionate about advocating for, is just making sure the supports for siblings are there, because I think many people don't realize, not just when a child is going through cancer, but any sort of serious medical issue or disease or surgery or whatnot, it's really hard on the siblings, no matter what age they are, for a variety of reasons. So that's something that I'll always make sure that I champion for is for the siblings. But they have a really good relationship. Our family, we've been through a lot, and so we found new and different ways to support each other and be there for each other. But I'm really proud of both of them for how they went through it and have come out on the other side. And they're both just really strong, mature, emotionally intelligent, all the things, young women. So they're great.
You're not a proud mom or anything.
I am a proud mom.
And I'm so glad to hear that part of your advocacy is toward that, because like you said, I really think that a lot of times the siblings get kind of left out in the cold, for lack of a better term, because everything is so focused on the illness or the disease or the treatments and stuff. And then you've got the other siblings over here going, well, what about me? And I think maybe it's harder when it's a younger sibling than in your case. Lucy was older, but still. And one woman that I interviewed, her daughter passed from brain cancer, that her other daughter now has a podcast where that's solely focused on siblings, which is, it's phenomenal. That's what I love about this community. Like, people just invent things or create things or start nonprofits or whatever because of the experience that they went through themselves. So we need to remember the siblings when things are happening like this.
Absolutely. I'll have to find that podcast and share it with
I will send it to you. I can't remember the name of it, but I will find it and I'll send it to you.
Yeah. And I will say the other thing, so we had treatment at Nationwide Children's Hospital here in Columbus, and the team there was just phenomenal. We're so lucky that we have one of the top pediatric oncology hospitals right here in our backyard. And before this, we'd, go to the pediatrician and a few trips to urgent care like any family, but we never really had any sort of serious things to go to main hospital. But, we are so grateful for them and their team and all the great expertise that we have here, right here locally. And we didn't have to travel for treatment. But that was one of the things that they are very intentional about, is like, we aren't just treating the patient, we're here to help your whole family. So, we were all able to access, mental health supports, including my older daughter, and then just all of the wraparound services that they have for the patients of, child life supports and social workers and recreational therapy and music and art therapy and like all the things. And they are just as important as, the medicines and everything in going through a journey like that. So all of those things I think are just, I knew nothing about that before we went through this on our own, but, just learning about that, it is so important. And, Children's Hospitals just provide such great supports to the families they serve.
And it is important, adults, children, everybody going through this. It's not just about the physical treatments and stuff. You got to take care of the emotional and the mental well-being, and I maybe even more so for kids because they
Mm-hmm.
lose a lot of that joie de vivre or that zest because they're going through all of this, and having those extra support structures in place is so
Mm-hmm.
so important. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad that they had that there and you didn't really have to travel for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, well, shifting gears a little, or I guess transitioning more so, how did you find Cancer Free Kids? And I obviously that this whole thing led you to become a
Yeah.
part of that, but how did you find it? Were they part of Hannah's journey, or was it just something that came out of the blue?
Yeah, so I'd been connected with them a little bit personally and professionally before. And so I knew about them and just had kind of always been interested in the work that they were doing. Cancer Free Kids is based in Cincinnati, so started in Cincinnati in 2002. So, very well established, but growing in Columbus. So, as the organization has grown, and the funding has gone from both Cincinnati and then more recently to Nationwide Children's Hospital. The presence of the organization is just, really uh, evolving and expanding into Columbus. So I knew some of the folks on the team, and they approached me and said, we have an opportunity. We're looking to grow our team in Columbus. Would you be interested? And it just seemed like, the universe was kind of saying, this is the path to go on, and I'm really happy that I'm here. Just again to marry my personal and professional passions. I think the work of Cancer Free Kids cannot be overstated and how important it is. And I've gotten to meet, a lot of families through, you meet a lot of families when you're in the journey anyways of, people that you meet on the floor and just things like that, being in pediatric cancer experiences. It's kind of like an exclusive club that, you meet people and you're like, oh, you have this instant connection, and then getting to meet people professionally. So it's been a really great journey, and it can bring a lot of hope to the families and the kids that we serve.
Tell us about Cancer Free Kids. What is their mission? What does the organization do?
Yeah. So Cancer Free Kids started by another mom, Ellen Flannery, who, when her daughter Shayna was a baby, had cancer in her eyes, and so going through that journey, they started asking questions. Who's uh, where's the research, what's being done for pediatric cancer, what are the holes, and finding that they really found, number one, the really large disparities between funding for adult cancers and pediatric cancers. So, it fluctuates, but on average, it's a less than about 8% of all of the federal cancer funding that goes to pediatric cancers. And then when you boil it down, it's like pediatric cancer isn't just one thing, right? It's made up of tons of subtypes of blood cancers, solid tumor sarcomas, brain cancers, and then within those there's like hundreds of subtypes, right? So it's like you're already a small piece of the pie, and then it's boiling down to all of these different subgroups, but really then within
Well, if you
that.
think about it, I mean, you've got so many different cancers in adults, and
Right.
each one of them is its own thing, but
Right.
then they kind of just lump it into pediatric cancer. And there's
100%.
still, I mean, not necessarily all of the cancers that adults get, but there's a whole host of them, and you're just relegated to pediatric cancers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. Like I'm
Yeah.
not that I'm sure there aren't as many kids getting diagnosed as adults, but
Sure.
still, maybe we should look at pediatric sarcoma versus pediatric leukemia and not just pediatric cancers.
Exactly. So one problem in itself, but then again, going back to our founder Ellen and talking to a lot of experts at Cincinnati Children's, where they were based, really found out that the early stage area of research is, really the most underfunded and most important element of the research pipeline. So that's the niche that she started the organization, and so really what we do is we fund early stage, high opportunity grants at both Nationwide Children's in Columbus and Cincinnati Children's. And it's really the opportunity for a researcher to get an idea off the ground. So it might be they saw something in literature that they want to try, or they've seen some initial lab findings. But in order to go along and get subsequent funding, you need that proof of concept. It's sort of like a chicken and egg thing. Like you can't get funding without proof of concept, but you can't get proof of concept without funding. So we that's really the niche that we play into. So we do new idea grants. That's really like you want to try something out. And then we also have a series of grants called accelerator grants, where we sort of reinvest some of the most promising ideas that allow them to take their research to the next level. So in our history, we've funded $12.5 million in research grants, and that's gone on to get over $124 million in subsequent funding, and drugs that have been into clinical trials and FDA approved drugs and papers published and several spin-off companies. So it's been, we have a really good track record of success, and we've seen the grant submissions that are coming in have increased, and just really trying to again raise that awareness and raise people's knowledge of why this is such a big need. And this is the type of research that's going to change the way that we treat pediatric cancers, right, in the future.
I mean, I hope so.
I hope so too.
And is there, I mean, I know obviously we can talk about the money situation,
Mm-hmm.
Pharmaceutical companies go after breast cancer and lung cancer and prostate cancer because they can get more money from them. But could there also be something in the lines of, you don't necessarily want to experiment on children who can't, who don't have the autonomy to make their own decisions? Does that play into why there is a bit of a lack of research for pediatric cancers?
Sure. So there's a couple of reasons. Number one, you did touch on it, like, thankfully pediatric cancer is mostly rare, right? There's not a ton of kids getting diagnosed with cancer, which is a good thing, right?
Thank God,
but
yes.
Right. But it's not so rare where I would say most people probably know of, a kid somewhere in your school or your church, or, it's not uncommon to know somebody who's been touched by this journey. So, but certainly the rareness plays into it because there's just not enough pool of people to, have clinical trials easily or things like that. And then, certainly there is more regulatory hurdles for the pediatric side. So there's, and I won't go into all of the ins and outs because I'm not an expert on the research side, but I know that is another side of it. So, the not profitability, the smaller scale of patient populations, the increased regulatory requirements and things like that. So certainly all of those factors are playing into like why it's not just a slam dunk for people to want to invest in pediatric cancer research. But, sometimes things are worth investing in that aren't always profitable. So that's kind of what we're here to do. One of the reasons why Cancer Free Kids does what we do, and what I'm so passionate about, why I'm so passionate about it too, is like when you think about a kid being treated for cancer, they have their whole life ahead of them, right? I mean, I think we all are familiar with the harshness of many cancer treatments and the further health implications that they can have. And I'm not taking away from anyone's spouse or parent or aunt or grandma who has cancer when they're 50, 60, 70, but at that point you're talking about a different length of time post treatment where somebody is going to be able to live their life versus somebody who has a kid. They have their whole life ahead of them. And so we're trying to change the way that we treat pediatric cancer, because it's not just getting the kids. Of course we want kids to survive and have good outcomes and get through their journey and then go on to live their life. But almost half of kids who go through cancer will go on to have another health issue as a result of the chemo or the radiation, everything from kidney issues to hearing loss to, of course, fertility issues, People have complications if they have like bone marrow transplants and things like that, that can really like make you have debilitating health issues for the rest of your life. And so again, we want kids, of course, to survive, but we want them to not have all of the harsh side effects that go along with, what we have today.
Yes. And when you think of, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but the treatments that they were giving back, say in the 60s and 70s, when they were basically poisoning the body just above the point of killing it, and saying it was a success because they survived, which it was. Mm-hmm. But then 30, 40, 50 years later, when these people are in the prime of their lives, all of a sudden, all of these other issues that are more a side effect of the treatments than what the actual cancer did in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when we talked initially, you had told me that the protocols and the standard of care for pediatric cancer treatments are pretty much the same thing that they've been for decades, that there really hasn't been a whole lot of innovation in pediatric cancer treatments. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And I can't speak for all of them. Certainly there are, if you take childhood leukemia, I mean, I don't know the exact treatment protocols for that, but at least the outcomes have changed tremendously in decades. Sure. It used to be very high mortality rates, and now there's certain leukemias have very successful rates of survivorship.
And we need to celebrate that.
Yes, absolutely. So there are strides being made, but again, I just remember learning that for osteosarcoma and for many sarcomas, it's like the standard of care hasn't changed in decades. We're still using very broad spectrum chemotherapy that, again, kind of like kills everything, all the healthy cells while you're trying to kill the cancer. And, that has harsh side effects. And there's still, some pediatric cancers where, they have very high mortality rates, and there's just has not been a lot of progress made in those certain diseases, some brain cancers and things like that. So while certainly celebrate strides to be made, I think there are, in many cases, there's still a lot of work to be done, so that, we're not still using 40-year-old treatment plans for today's kids.
Right. And especially, and this is why I'm not in pharmaceuticals, because I really don't understand this. I'm keep reading about all this research and all of these targeted therapies that are being developed and given to people. A lot of it is people with stage 4 disease, which very much is huge. But you would think that people would be looking into these targeted therapies for pediatric cancers as well, because they're so much less harmful to the whole body. And we really want that for the kids, so they have less lingering and long-term side effects of these treatments. And again, I would revolutionize big pharma if I possibly could, but I just don't understand that way of thinking, that why aren't we doing this for kids?
Yeah, well, and actually we are. So there is some really exciting research. And again, I'm not a research expert, so I'll probably not say everything exactly correct here, but some of the researchers that we work with at Nationwide Children's and Cincinnati Children's, and I'll say we're really fortunate that we have 2 of the top 5 pediatric oncology hospitals, 2 hours away from each other in Ohio. And so we do, we're really fortunate. That's the reason why we have picked both of those institutions to really invest in, because the research that they are doing there, they're not only providing world-class care, but the research that's happening there is really going on to make strides in transforming the way that we do treat pediatric cancer. So everything, like you said, from targeted cells, these immunotherapies, and looking into gene therapies. There's research happening that's pretty cool, and using mice models of zebrafish, and how can you target certain types of tumors and really make it so that it's only targeting the tumor and not the rest of the cells. So there is a lot of really exciting things happening, and we've seen some things go from research idea to now bedside treatments along the history of cancer-free kids, which is really exciting. And when I've talked to some of the researchers, they talk about we're not looking into developing more chemotherapy drugs. It is really that sort of targeted, personalized approach to care, because every body's different, every kid's different, every cancer is different. And so a lot of those targeted gene therapies, cell therapies, all that stuff, that I'm so thankful there's people way smarter than me that can figure out how to do this, gene sequencing and all of that stuff. I've heard researchers say that the next 10 to 15 years, I think we're going to really see a lot of movement in changing some of the way that we treat pediatric cancer specifically, which is really exciting.
That is so exciting and so desperately needed. And
Yes.
I'm sure it feels great to know that Cancer-Free Kids has really played a role in all of that happening.
Yeah, it's really rewarding to see. And it's interesting in working in a nonprofit that funds cancer research, because if you think about nonprofits, how many people say like, well, your fund today will feed 5 families or send X number of clothes to kids, and it's really hard to make that immediate impact. But it's exciting to see, to hear, and we'll go back and talk to researchers and see like, okay, this is a project we funded 10 years ago, and look what they're doing now, and now it's being published, and they're moving into clinical trials, and they're seeing this. And we actually had a family in our community, and their daughter had, I believe it was leukemia, and it was like towards the very end of her treatment, but she was actually able to get a drug that had just been approved, like new to use, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but sort of the tail end, she was able to take advantage of a new drug that had just been FDA approved to come onto market for treating that kind of cancer, and was able to reap the benefit of that. So there is a lot of exciting things happening.
I love hearing that, and that just makes my day. We hear so much about the downsides of cancer, and I mean there are a lot. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all.
Sure.
Hearing about the innovation and the research that's being done, and I'm just so excited about the future of healthcare and stuff. And I interviewed a nurse a few months ago, and her thing was, if you're diagnosed with cancer, just live. Do whatever you have to do to live long enough, because those treatments are coming down the pike, and just live long enough to be able to take advantage of them.
100%. I'll never forget the first time we met one of the researchers at Nationwide Children's, who specifically does osteosarcoma research, and he's been really great to our family. But the first time he met him, he told my daughter, he said, Hannah, we're working really hard. He said, in 10 years, kids like you will have much different treatments than you have now. And I still get chills when I think about that.
That's so awesome. All right. Well, Julie, where can people find you? If people want more information about Cancer-Free Kids, if they want to touch base with you, what is the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You can find Cancer-Free Kids at www.cancerfreekids.org. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Julie Daubenmire. I should also make a plug at Cancer-Free Kids. One of our biggest campaigns of the year is coming up in September. So September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And we have what we call our 100-mile challenge that people can do literally from anywhere. So the whole month of September, you sign up and you can do 100 miles of any activity. So running, biking, hiking, pickleball, gardening, whatever. We have a whole app that does a conversion. So, you track your activities, it converts to miles, and then you sign up to either raise or pledge $100 to our mission. So you can find information about that. It's a great way to have a little fitness challenge with coworkers or your neighbors or friends and family and whatnot. So there's information about that on our website as well.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
Challenge.
Just be active and raise money for all of this. I love that.
Right? Yep. And you can literally do it from anywhere in the world.
Well, hopefully by September I will be healed from my running injury, and
Oh
I will
no.
probably take advantage of that. That sounds like so much fun.
Yes, yeah, it's great.
All right. And then last question that I ask all of my guests, if you, and I mean, you probably do, but if you come across someone who is dealing with an initial diagnosis, a parent whose child has been diagnosed with cancer, what is one piece of advice that you would give to them to kind of get through that overwhelm and emotion of the initial stages after a diagnosis?
Oh gosh, so much. I feel like I could write a book about that. But
Just one.
um, I would say accept the help, and it might not seem like it now, but you will get through it and it will get better and the sun will come up on the other side.
I love that. That is perfect. All right, Julie, thank you so much for your time today. This has been so informative, and I'm so grateful that Hannah is healthy and well and hopefully long term cancer free. And your family is just thriving, and Cancer Free Kids is doing such amazing work in Ohio. And hopefully, things like that will translate to other areas of the country at some point. But hey, if we can at least get the research in one place, we can definitely make change all over the place.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for what you do to share, allow people to have a platform to share their stories and just bring together this community because, it is a community, whether we like to be in the community or not.
Yep. Say the community we never wanted to join, but it's
Yep,
got the best members.
absolutely.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye bye.